You are here because something inside you stirred. Maybe it was a whisper that wouldn't quiet down. Maybe it was the heavy weight of knowing you're capable of more, but you've been living below your potential. Or maybe it was the realization that time doesn't wait, and the life you want won't build itself. Whatever brought you here, that spark, that restless pull, is the awakening. It's the first sign that you are ready to answer the call of your own relentless drive. There are moments in life when the noise of the world quiets just enough for us to hear something deeper. Sometimes it arrives in silence, like a sudden clarity that pierces through the fog of routine. Other times it comes through frustration, the undeniable ache of knowing you're stuck in a cycle that doesn't serve you anymore. The awakening is rarely comfortable. It doesn't always arrive dressed as inspiration. Often, it knocks on your door disguised as dissatisfaction, pain, or even failure. But beneath the disguise, it's not punishment. It's an invitation. Imagine you're standing at the edge of a wide, unbroken plain. Behind you are the roads you've already walked, choices, habits, mistakes, victories, all woven into the path that has carried you to this exact place. Ahead, though, the land is open. There are no clear signs, no guarantees, only possibility. The awakening is the voice inside that says, "Step forward anyway." Even if you don't know where the road leads, you know with certainty that you cannot stay where you are. This call within you may be faint or it may be roaring, but either way, it is persistent. It lingers when you're alone. It speaks when the distractions fade. And while you can try to silence it with busyness, with comfort, with excuses, it will return. Because the truth is this: the life you are meant to live will keep chasing you until you are brave enough to chase it back. When people ignore this awakening, they become restless. They settle into patterns that feel safe but suffocating. They bury their drive under obligations, distractions, and self-doubt. But you cannot bury your potential without burying part of yourself. That's why so many people walk through life half awake, breathing, working, surviving, but never fully alive. The awakening is the antidote. It shakes you from the sleep of mediocrity and whispers, "Wake up. There's more for you." Sometimes it comes after loss, when the fragility of life is laid bare. Sometimes it rises in moments of success, when the victory feels emptier than you imagined. Other times, it strikes in the middle of ordinary days, when nothing dramatic is happening at all. A sudden thought surfaces. Is this really it? Is this all I'm here for? That question, though uncomfortable, is not your enemy. It is the beginning of transformation. You don't need to have all the answers when you hear the call. You don't need to see the entire path. You only need to accept that where you are is not where you're meant to stay. Growth doesn't ask for perfection, it asks for willingness. Every revolution, every reinvention, every relentless pursuit begins with the simple act of saying, "Yes, I hear it, and I will not ignore it." Think of the awakening like the first crack of dawn. At first, it's just a thin line of light cutting into the horizon. Shadows are still heavy, and the world feels uncertain. But that thin line is enough. It promises that more light is coming. Your awakening is that promise, the assurance that the darkness of doubt, fear, or stagnation will not define you if you dare to move forward. So how do you answer the call? You begin by listening to the questions inside you instead of running from them. What is it you've been pretending not to care about? What dreams have you shelved under the excuse of timing or practicality? What part of you is aching to be expressed, to be tested, to be unleashed? These are not idle questions. They are signals, and your willingness to face them with honesty will ignite the momentum that carries you into the next chapter of your life. The awakening also demands truth. It asks you to strip away the illusions that have kept you comfortable. Maybe you've told yourself you're not ready. Maybe you've believed the lie that you're too late, too flawed, or too ordinary. The call doesn't care about those excuses. It cuts through them. It reminds you that readiness is not a feeling, it is a decision. The moment you declare yourself ready, the moment you choose to answer, you already step into a new identity. This is not to say the path will be easy. Awakening is not about instant transformation. It's about igniting the process. It's the spark before the fire. What follows will require grit, patience, and sacrifice. But without this first step, without this conscious decision to wake up, everything else stays locked behind a door you never tried to open. Imagine your life as a house. You've lived in the same familiar room for years, safe, predictable, yet uninspiring. One day, you hear faint music playing from beyond a closed door down the hall. That music is your potential. The awakening is the moment you finally decide to walk toward it, to turn the knob, and see what waits on the other side. The music has always been there. The question is whether you will be bold enough to follow it. Action can begin small. Write down what you're running from, the habits, the fears, the situations that keep you trapped. Then write down what you're running toward, the life, the vision, the version of yourself that feels alive with purpose. That simple act is more than writing words on paper. It's drawing a map for your next evolution. It's saying, I see it now. I'm not blind anymore. The beauty of the awakening is that it doesn't demand perfection. It only demands presence. It calls you to stop sleepwalking through your days and start paying attention. Pay attention to the moments that stir your spirit. Pay attention to the work that excites you, the challenges that intimidate you, the people who ignite something in you. These are clues. They are the breadcrumbs that lead you toward your relentless drive. But here's the truth. Hearing the call is not enough. Countless people feel it, recognize it, even talk about it, but never act on it. They wait for a perfect time that never arrives. They wait for permission from others, approval from the world, or guarantees of success. That waiting becomes their prison. Answering the call means refusing to wait. It means stepping forward while your hands still shake, while your voice still trembles, while your vision is still blurry. Because momentum doesn't come from certainty, it comes from movement. The awakening is not just about desire, it's about responsibility. Once you've heard the call, you can't unhear it. To ignore it is to betray yourself. To follow it is to step into the kind of life that demands courage, but rewards you with growth, fulfillment, and the power of knowing you didn't waste the fire inside you. So here you are, at the threshold of your own awakening. Maybe you feel the stir of possibility, or maybe it's just the quiet conviction that you cannot keep living as you have been. Either way, this moment is sacred, because this is the place where change begins. Not tomorrow, not when conditions are perfect, but here, now, with you deciding to rise. You've heard the call, you've felt the stir, you've recognized that there's something more waiting for you. Now the question is simple. Will you take responsibility for it? Will you step into the mirror and face the truth of your own choices? That, my friend, is where we go next. That's where real transformation begins. Not in dreams, not in wishes, not in visions of what could be, but in the raw honesty of admitting where you stand right now. The mirror doesn't lie. It doesn't soften the edges or make excuses. It shows you exactly what's there. Your patterns, your habits, your results. You can look away, you can avoid it, you can even break it if you want, but the truth remains. Ownership means choosing to stand in front of that mirror without flinching. Blame is the enemy of ownership. How often have you told yourself that someone else's actions are the reason you aren't further along? How often have you whispered the story that circumstances, timing, or luck are to blame? Those stories feel comforting in the moment because they remove pressure. They let you off the hook, but they also chain you to powerlessness. Every time you place responsibility on someone else's shoulders, you hand them the keys to your future. Ownership is about taking those keys back. When you stand in front of the mirror, you see the evidence of your decisions. Maybe you see the strength of choices that served you, or maybe you see the weight of neglect and avoidance. Either way, the reflection is yours. Nobody else's reflection is staring back. Nobody else made every decision that brought you here. That truth can sting, but it's also liberating. Because if your past choices shaped where you are now, your present choices can shape where you go next. Imagine a ship in the middle of the ocean. The captain can curse the wind, the waves, or the storm, but none of that changes the direction of the vessel. Ownership is when the captain takes hold of the wheel and says, "No matter what the sea does, I'm steering this ship. Life will throw storms at you. Ownership doesn't deny that. It simply says, I'm responsible for how I navigate them. Think about the language you use when you talk to yourself and others. Do you say, they made me angry? Or do you say, I allowed myself to react with anger? Do you say, I didn't have time? Or do you admit, I chose not to make time? The difference may seem small, but it's everything. One puts the power outside of you, the other keeps the power within your hands. The mirror teaches you to replace blame with truth, to replace excuses with choice. This shift isn't about beating yourself up. Ownership is not self-punishment. It's self-empowerment. It means saying, yes, I made choices that didn't serve me. Yes, I avoided responsibility at times, but now I choose differently. The past is not a chain meant to hold you down. It's a classroom meant to teach you. When you own your reflection, you no longer run from it. You study it. You learn from it. You grow beyond it. Many people fear the mirror because they equate ownership with guilt. But guilt paralyzes. Ownership energizes. Guilt keeps you stuck in shame, repeating the same mistakes because you're too busy punishing yourself. Ownership sets you free to act differently. It says, I am the author. The pen is in my hand now. So how do you practice ownership in your daily life? Start with the smallest moments. Catch yourself when you shift blame. Notice when you say, I couldn't, and instead say, I chose not to. Notice when you think, they made me, and reframe it as, I decided. This language shift may feel uncomfortable at first, but it's the beginning of reclaiming control. You are retraining your mind to see choice where it once saw helplessness. Picture yourself again in front of that mirror. You see not just who you are now, but the person you're becoming. That reflection doesn't mock you. It waits for you. It waits for you to step into alignment with who you know you can be. Ownership is the bridge between the reflection you see today and the one you want to see tomorrow. Some will resist this truth because it removes their excuses. They want the comfort of saying the world is unfair, that fate or destiny controls everything. But let's be clear, life is unfair. Circumstances differ. Challenges aren't evenly distributed. Yet ownership isn't about denying those realities. It's about refusing to let them be the final verdict on your life. Ownership means you still get to choose your response, your effort, your next move. Even in unfairness, you have agency. Think of great athletes, leaders, creators, those who rise above the average. What separates them is not the absence of obstacles, but the refusal to outsource responsibility. They don't say, the field was wet, the referee was biased, the market was slow. They say, I could have prepared better, I could have adapted faster, I will adjust next time. That mindset is what sharpens them into champions. Ownership is their secret weapon, and it can be yours too. But ownership is not only about achievement, it's about peace. When you know you are responsible for your life, you stop waiting for others to rescue you. You stop waiting for the world to change before you do. That realization removes the endless tension of trying to control what you can't. Ownership simplifies your focus. Steer your own ship, no matter the sea. To strengthen this practice, try a daily exercise. Each evening, stand in front of a literal mirror. Look yourself in the eye and ask, what did I choose today? Notice both the choices that lifted you and the ones that held you back. Don't judge, just acknowledge. Over time, this simple ritual builds awareness. It transforms vague frustration into clear patterns, and when you see the patterns, you gain the power to change them. There will be resistance. Part of you may want to turn away, to deny the reflection, to soften it with excuses. That's normal. But remember, the mirror does not expose you to break you. It exposes you to free you. The greatest chains you carry are often invisible, forged in the stories you tell yourself. Ownership cuts those chains by replacing story with truth. Once you embrace this principle, you'll find something surprising. Ownership is not heavy, it's light. It doesn't weigh you down, it lifts you. Because for the first time, You realize that you don't have to wait for permission, for luck, or for circumstances to align. You are the driver. You always have been. The mirror just reminded you. So stand tall in front of it. See yourself clearly. Accept responsibility for where you are, and with the same breath, claim responsibility for where you're going. That reflection is not fixed. It is alive, changing with every choice you make. Ownership gives you the power to shape it. Now that you've faced the mirror and taken back control, it's time to turn your attention to where you're steering. You cannot move forward without a direction, without a vision that pulls you through resistance. Ownership answers the question of who is responsible. The next step asks, for what? Once you've stood in front of the mirror and claimed responsibility for your life, the path ahead needs more than discipline and honesty. It needs direction. Without vision, responsibility turns into wandering. You can row a boat with all your strength, but if you're rowing in circles, the effort only exhausts you. Vision is the compass. It is the picture that pulls you forward when effort feels heavy, the clarity that gives meaning to your grind. Think back to moments when you felt most alive. Perhaps it was during a challenge where you had to push beyond what you thought you could do. Perhaps it was when you dreamed about the future and felt that electric current of possibility run through your veins. Those moments weren't random. They were glimpses of vision, snapshots of the life you're capable of building. The problem is, most people treat vision like a passing daydream. They see it, they feel it for a moment, then they let it fade under the weight of everyday distractions. A relentless vision doesn't fade. It roots itself deep inside you, shaping your choices and fueling your determination. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine yourself 5 years from now. Where are you? What do you look like? What does your day feel like when you wake up? What kind of work are you doing? Who surrounds you? Don't rush through this. Let the picture sharpen. The more vivid it becomes, the more magnetic it is. That is the power of vision. It pulls you forward rather than forcing you to push. Without it, every challenge feels heavier than it is. With it, challenges transform into stepping stones. Consider the image of a lighthouse on a stormy coast. Waves crash, wind howls, darkness tries to swallow everything. The ship at sea has only one point of focus, that steady beam of light. It doesn't remove the storm, but it provides direction. That's what vision does for you. It doesn't erase obstacles. It doesn't guarantee calm waters, but it keeps you locked on the destination so you don't lose yourself in the storm. Now here's the truth that many ignore. A weak vision will not hold you when life tests you. A vague idea like, I want to be successful, or I want to be happy, dissolves the moment struggle arrives. Success in what? Happiness defined by what? Vision must be specific enough to guide you. When the alarm rings before dawn, it's not the idea of success that gets you out of bed, it's the clear picture of the life you're building. It's seeing yourself healthier, stronger, freer, more fulfilled. That picture is the pull. Without it, motivation collapses. Think of athletes training for the Olympics. They don't wake up at 4 a.m., push through injuries, or sacrifice comforts just because being fit is nice. They have a vision, standing on the podium, representing their country, hearing the anthem play. That picture burns in their minds every single day. That's what keeps them relentless. Your vision doesn't need to be Olympic in scale, but it does need to ignite you in the same way. So how do you build such a vision? Start with honesty. Strip away what you think you should want, what others expect you to want, and face what you truly desire. If you could remove judgment, if you could remove fear, what would you chase? Too often, people build visions based on someone else's script, a parent's plan, society's standards, the highlight reels they scroll through online. That's not vision, that's imitation. Relentless vision must come from within, rooted in your deepest values and longings. Once you have clarity, write it down. Writing gives shape to imagination. It takes the intangible and makes it visible. Create a statement of vision that is so vivid you can almost step into it. Describe how it feels, what you see, what you hear. Don't just write, I want financial freedom. Paint the picture. I wake up without alarm clocks. I walk into a home filled with light. My work excites me, and I choose it, not because I have to, but because I love it. Details breathe life into vision. From there, Connect your vision to daily actions. Vision without action is fantasy. Action without vision is aimless. Together, they become unstoppable. Ask yourself, what small steps today align with the bigger picture I'm building? If your vision is to be healthy, does your plate tonight reflect that? If your vision is to be a leader, do your words today inspire trust and strength? Vision isn't meant to live in the future, it's meant to shape your present. But vision is not static. It evolves as you grow. What once felt like the peak will one day feel like the base of a new climb. That's not failure. That's progress. A relentless vision breathes. It stretches as you do. That's why you must revisit it often, sharpening it, adjusting it, making sure it still ignites you. Otherwise, you risk chasing a vision that no longer fits the person you've become. There's also a danger in confusing vision with fantasy. Fantasy is effortless. It feels good in the mind but demands nothing in reality. Vision demands alignment. It calls you to sacrifice comfort, to take risks, to discipline yourself. A fantasy lets you escape. A vision forces you to evolve. The difference lies in whether you're willing to shape your actions around it. When you carry a relentless vision, others will notice. Some will be inspired, others will be threatened. Not everyone will understand the fire inside you. Some may call it unrealistic, obsessive, or foolish. That's fine. The vision isn't theirs to understand, it belongs to you. History's great builders, innovators, and leaders all faced the same criticism. Their vision looked impossible until it was realized. What seemed foolish to others was fuel to them. Let your vision be the same. A relentless vision also protects you from distraction. The world is filled with noise, countless opportunities, endless temptations to settle for less. Without vision, you become scattered, chasing everything and catching nothing. With vision, you say no with clarity. You can let go of the good because you're aiming for the great. Every distraction loses power when measured against the picture you refuse to abandon. Here's a practice you can try. Each morning, before diving into the chaos of the day, take 5 minutes to visualize your vision as vividly as you can. Not just seeing it, feeling it. Feel the pride, the strength, the joy of living it. Then carry that emotion into your first actions of the day. It transforms ordinary tasks into meaningful steps because each one is connected to something larger than the moment itself. The key word here is relentless. Anyone can have a vision for a week, for a season, when life feels exciting. Relentless vision survives doubt, rejection, and delay. It survives the days when progress feels invisible. It survives failure. It's not about how many times you feel inspired. It's about how many times you refuse to let go. You now hold the responsibility and the reflection of the mirror, and with it, the compass of vision. But there is still one more layer missing. The force that sustains the pursuit when inspiration fades. Because vision gives you a picture, but discipline keeps your feet moving toward it. Ownership gives you the wheel, vision gives you the destination, and what comes next will give you the fuel. Because vision on its own is not enough. Dreams may ignite your imagination, but they will not carry you through the grind of reality. What sustains the journey is not fleeting motivation, it's discipline. Motivation is like a spark. It can light the fire, but it is inconsistent, fragile, unpredictable. Discipline is the wood you keep adding to the fire, the structure that ensures the flame never dies, no matter how the wind blows. Think about the last time you felt highly motivated. Maybe you watched a powerful film, read an inspiring story, or listened to someone speak with passion. In that moment, you felt unstoppable, ready to take on the world. But then, a few hours later, or maybe a few days later, the feeling faded. Life resumed its rhythm, challenges showed up, and the intensity drained away. That is the nature of motivation. It rises and falls like the tide. It's beautiful when it's here, but dangerous to depend on. Discipline, on the other hand, is steady. It is the decision to act, regardless of how you feel. It's what builds results long after the initial spark has disappeared. Picture a stonecutter in front of a massive boulder. Each day, he strikes it once, twice, 100 times. The rock does not crack at first. He feels no progress. To an outsider, his work might even look pointless, but he continues, strike after strike, until one day, with a single blow, the stone shatters. It was not that last strike alone that made the difference. It was the accumulation of every strike before it. Discipline is that relentless repetition. It's not glamorous, it's not exciting, but it is unstoppable. Motivation says, I feel like doing it today. Discipline says, I do it anyway. Motivation whispers, wait until you're ready. Discipline responds, I'll start now, even if I'm unprepared. Motivation thrives on emotion. Discipline thrives on commitment. If you want to create change that lasts, you must build a life ruled by discipline, not emotion. So how do you begin to cultivate discipline? Start by making your commitments visible. Write down what matters most to you and transform them into daily, non-negotiable actions. These are the pillars that hold up your vision. Maybe it's writing a page every day if you want to become a writer. Maybe it's running 2 miles every morning if health is your goal. The key is consistency, not intensity. Too many people burn themselves out by chasing quick results. They sprint, then collapse. Discipline builds endurance. It teaches you the value of steady steps, repeated over time, until momentum becomes your ally. Imagine training a muscle. The first time you lift the weight, it feels heavy, maybe even impossible. But with each repetition, with each day you return to it, the muscle grows stronger. Discipline works the same way. At first, it feels unnatural. Resistance is high. But the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, discipline stops feeling like a burden and begins to feel like identity. You no longer say, I'm trying to be disciplined. You say, I am disciplined. That shift changes everything. One of the most effective tools for building discipline is ritual. A ritual is more than a habit. It's a signal to your mind and body that it's time to act. Think about athletes before a game. They follow routines, sometimes down to the smallest detail, because rituals anchor them. They remove decision fatigue, making action automatic. You can do the same in your life. Create morning rituals that prepare you for the day, evening rituals that help you reflect, and work rituals that signal focus. The more structured your rituals, the less room you leave for excuses. Discipline also thrives in environments that support it. Look at your surroundings. Do they make it easier or harder to live with discipline? If your vision is health, but your kitchen is filled with junk food, you're relying on willpower alone, and willpower is limited. If your vision is focus, but your phone is buzzing with endless notifications, you've built an environment that sabotages you. Discipline becomes easier when your environment aligns with your goals. Clear the clutter, set boundaries, and design spaces that reinforce the person you want to become. There will be days when discipline feels impossible, days when exhaustion, doubt, or frustration try to drag you down. On those days, remember this: discipline is not about perfection, it's about persistence. Missing one day doesn't break you, quitting does. Discipline is about returning to the path again and again, no matter how many times you stumble. Every return strengthens your resolve. Every comeback builds resilience. Think of a mountain climber. The summit is far above, hidden in clouds. He takes one step, then another. Sometimes he slips. Sometimes he must pause. But he always continues upward. He doesn't measure his progress by how easy the journey feels. He measures it by whether he keeps moving forward. That is discipline, the refusal to stop even when progress is invisible. There's a secret power in discipline that often goes unnoticed: freedom. At first, discipline feels restrictive, like rules that box you in. But over time, discipline creates liberation. The person who disciplines their spending gains financial freedom. The person who disciplines their health gains energy and vitality. The person who disciplines their craft gains mastery and choice. The undisciplined are slaves to impulse. The disciplined are free to create their lives. Ask yourself, what small disciplines can I implement today that align with my vision? Don't aim for 20 changes at once. Choose 2 or 3 non-negotiables and practice them daily. Let them anchor you. Once they become part of you, add more. Growth compounds, and discipline builds layer by layer until it forms the foundation of your identity. But discipline is not fueled by punishment or harshness. True discipline is fueled by love, for your vision, for your potential, for the life you're building. It's not about whipping yourself into submission. It's about honoring yourself enough to follow through. When you reframe discipline as an act of respect, not restriction, it transforms from a chore into a gift. There will always be voices around you that question why you're so strict, why you push so hard, why you refuse to indulge in every fleeting comfort. Let them question. They see discipline as sacrifice, but you know it's an investment. They see it as deprivation, but you know it's preparation. Discipline is the bridge between the vision in your mind and the reality in your hands. Without it, the bridge collapses. With it, the bridge holds strong, no matter how heavy the load. So let discipline anchor you. Let it carry you when motivation fails, because motivation will fail. Let it steady you when emotions swing, because emotions will swing. Let it sharpen you until consistency becomes your greatest strength. Ownership has given you responsibility, vision has given you clarity, and discipline will now give you the resilience to act no matter what. Still, even with discipline, there is another truth you must face. Discipline builds strength, but strength is tested in the grind, in the repetition, in the long stretches where progress is invisible, where days feel monotonous and victories feel distant. It is there, in the grind itself, that you discover whether your drive is shallow or relentless. That is where we go next. It is in the grind itself that you discover whether your drive is shallow or relentless. This is where the difference between a fleeting spark and a lasting fire becomes clear. The grind is not glamorous. It is not the highlight reel you see on screens, filled with victories, applause, or shining moments. The grind is repetition. It is waking up before dawn when nobody is watching. It is pushing through when your body says no, when your mind tries to bargain, when the results you crave are nowhere in sight. The grind is where champions are made, because it is where most people quit. Picture a blacksmith in a dim workshop. The forge roars, the hammer rises, and strike after strike, the steel resists. Sparks fly, sweat pours, but the hammer never stops. Over time, that steel is shaped into a blade strong enough to withstand battle. That is the grind. It forges you in the same way. It takes the raw material of your potential and, through pressure and repetition, molds you into someone capable of carrying the weight of your vision. Many people love the idea of success, but shrink at the reality of effort. They want the destination without the road. They want the applause without the practice. But the grind strips away illusions. It forces you to confront your limits, your excuses, and your impatience. In that confrontation, you either retreat or you rise. There is no middle ground. The grind is not a punishment. It is the price of transformation. Every time you show up, even when you don't want to, you are proving something powerful. You are proving that you are stronger than your mood, stronger than comfort, stronger than the easy path. That proof builds a quiet confidence, the kind that cannot be faked. Confidence is not born in success. It is born in the grind, in the countless invisible moments when you chose to persist. Imagine a runner training for a marathon. Most of their miles are not run on race day. They are run in solitude, in silence, long before the crowd is cheering. Nobody sees the early mornings, the sore legs, the endless pavement. But it is precisely those unseen miles that make victory possible. Your grind works the same way. It is the accumulation of invisible work that creates visible breakthroughs. The danger lies in expecting the grind to feel exciting. Often it doesn't. Often it feels monotonous, frustrating, or even pointless. That is why so many abandon it. They mistake boredom for failure. But boredom is not failure. It is the soil where mastery grows. Think of a musician practicing scales, over and over, long after the thrill has faded. Those scales may sound repetitive, but they build the muscle memory that later produces breathtaking music. The grind is not about feeling entertained. It is about becoming excellent. The grind also exposes your relationship with time. We live in a culture addicted to speed, where quick results are celebrated and patience feels outdated. But the grind teaches you patience as a weapon. Each repetition, each hour, each day compounds. The one who embraces the grind is not racing against time. They are working with it, leveraging its compounding power. A drop of water falling on stone may look insignificant, but given enough time, it carves valleys. That is the relentless effect of the grind. Of course, there will be moments when you question if it's worth it. Doubt will whisper, "Why keep going when nothing seems to change?" But understand this: growth is often invisible at first. A seed buried in the soil looks like nothing is happening, but beneath the surface, roots are forming, preparing to break through. Your grind is planting roots. One day, the results will erupt into view, but only if you've been patient enough to keep watering the unseen. So how do you embrace the grind rather than resent it? You shift your perspective. Stop waiting for the process to feel easy or glamorous. Instead, learn to find meaning in the repetition itself. Every workout, every practice session, every early morning becomes a vote for the person you are becoming. Each one says, "I will not be ordinary. I will not quit on myself." When you see the grind as proof of your relentless nature, it transforms from a burden into a privilege. Another key is to break the grind into manageable steps. Mountains are climbed one step at a time, not in leaps. Focus on the day in front of you. Ask yourself, what can I control today? What can I do now that honors my vision? Then do that, again and again. Over time, those small steps accumulate into momentum so powerful it feels unstoppable. But embracing the grind doesn't mean ignoring rest. True relentlessness is not about burning yourself out. It's about sustaining effort for the long game. Rest becomes part of the grind, not an escape from it. A blacksmith doesn't hammer endlessly without pause. They let the steel cool, then return to the forge. You too must respect cycles of effort and recovery, balancing intensity with restoration. That is how you remain relentless without collapsing. The grind is also where resilience is born. Life will test you, setbacks will knock you down, failures will sting. The grind prepares you for these moments, because when you've built the habit of showing up regardless of mood, regardless of outcome, failure doesn't break you. It simply becomes part of the process. You know how to get up because you've practiced persistence every single day. Resilience is not built in moments of triumph. It is built in the grind. Think of it like sharpening a sword. Each pass of the whetstone may seem insignificant, but together they create an edge that cuts through anything. Each repetition in your grind sharpens you in the same way. One day, when you face obstacles that would have crushed the old version of you, you'll find yourself standing tall, prepared, unshaken. Not because the obstacle is smaller, but because you are sharper. The grind will test your patience, your belief, and your will. But if you lean into it, if you learn to embrace its rhythm, you will discover something extraordinary. The grind is not just shaping what you do, it is shaping who you are. It teaches you to value effort over ease, progress over comfort, growth over stagnation. It strips away weakness and leaves behind resilience, strength, and character. So let the grind be your training ground. Show up to it with grit, with patience, with persistence. Let it forge you, mold you, and prepare you for the challenges ahead. Because while the grind strengthens you, life will still throw blows, setbacks, failures, and unexpected storms. The question then becomes, how do you bounce back when you fall? That's where we turn next. Life will knock you down. That is not a possibility. It is a certainty. No matter how disciplined, no matter how clear your vision, no matter how much you embrace the grind, there will come a day when the unexpected happens, when the blow lands harder than you thought it could, when the ground feels ripped from beneath your feet. Resilience is not about avoiding those moments. It is about what you do after them. It is about how quickly and how powerfully you rise when you fall. Setbacks have a way of stripping us bare. They expose our fears, our doubts, our hidden insecurities. They make us question whether we have what it takes. That is why resilience is so vital. It becomes your anchor when the storm rages. Without it, defeat becomes permanent. With it, defeat becomes fuel. Think about a ball hitting the ground. The harder it hits, the higher it can bounce. Resilience works the same way. The impact may hurt, it may jolt you, it may even leave a scar. But if you've trained yourself to bounce, you don't just recover. You rise stronger, higher, sharper. You transform the force that tried to break you into momentum that pushes you forward. Consider the story of Thomas Edison. Thousands of failed experiments stood between him and the light bulb. Thousands. Most people would have quit after a handful, but Edison famously reframed each attempt as discovery, saying he hadn't failed. He had simply found another way that didn't work. That mindset is the essence of resilience. It's the refusal to see failure as final. It's the ability to extract lessons, to adapt, to continue. Without resilience, his grind would have ended in frustration. With resilience, it became a triumph that lit the world. You have your own failures. Maybe it was a business that collapsed. Maybe it was a relationship that ended in heartbreak. Maybe it was a goal you chased with all your energy, only to fall short. Those moments sting. They leave marks. But resilience doesn't deny the pain. It moves through it. It says, yes, this hurt. Yes, I fell. But no, this is not the end of my story. That inner voice of resilience is what separates those who give up from those who eventually win. Resilience is built in the grind, but it is tested in crisis. The hours of discipline, the repetitions, the habits, these are your training ground. Then comes the blow, the failure, the rejection. Suddenly, theory becomes reality. Suddenly, the grind is not about routine, it's about survival. In that moment, resilience is the bridge that carries you from breakdown to breakthrough. So how do you strengthen that bounce-back factor? First, you must reframe your relationship with failure. Stop seeing it as proof that you aren't enough. Start seeing it as evidence that you are trying, stretching, daring. Failure means you had the courage to step into the arena while others stayed in the stands. That alone is victory. Every time you fail, you gain data, perspective, resilience. Every failure is a rung on the ladder of mastery. Next, learn to extract meaning from setbacks. Ask yourself, what is this teaching me? How can this make me stronger? Where can I adjust? Resilience isn't just about enduring pain, it's about converting pain into wisdom. Like a blacksmith using fire not to destroy but to refine, you use adversity to sharpen yourself. Resilience also requires perspective. When you're in the middle of a storm, it feels endless, but storms always pass. The question is not whether it will end, it's whether you'll be prepared to step forward once the clouds clear. Holding perspective is like reminding yourself that the night always gives way to dawn. That awareness allows you to keep moving even when you can't see the light yet. Another vital piece of resilience is community. You are strong, yes, but no one is unbreakable alone. The people you surround yourself with can either pull you down or lift you up when you stumble. A resilient life is not built in isolation, it is built in connection. When you fall, you need voices reminding you of who you are, of what you've overcome, of why you started. Sometimes resilience is borrowed from a mentor, a friend, a loved one who holds faith for you when your own is shaky. But make no mistake, resilience is ultimately a decision. It is a choice to rise when staying down feels easier. It is the stubbornness to refuse surrender. That choice may feel small in the moment, like dragging yourself out of bed after failure, like making one more call after rejection, like trying again when part of you whispers to quit. But those small choices compound, and before long, they become identity. You stop being someone who bounces back occasionally and start being someone who cannot be kept down. Think about the Japanese art of kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired with gold. The cracks don't vanish, they are filled, highlighted, made beautiful. The bowl is not weaker for having broken, it is stronger, more valuable, more unique. That is what resilience does to you. It doesn't erase your scars. It turns them into strength, into beauty, into proof of survival. Every great story carries resilience at its core. The hero doesn't triumph without struggle. The victory means something precisely because of the losses endured along the way. Your story is no different. The chapters of pain, failure, and setback are not wasted ink. They are the tension that makes your triumph powerful. Without them, your success would feel hollow. With them, it will inspire. So when life knocks you down, do not ask, "Why me?" Ask, "What now?" That shift changes everything. "Why me?" keeps you stuck in pity, in paralysis. "What now?" propels you into action, into adaptation, into growth. That is resilience speaking. That is the relentless within, reminding you that no fall is final unless you choose to stay down. Resilience does not mean you will avoid pain. It means you will not be defined by it. It means every hit becomes fuel, every scar becomes armor, every setback becomes a setup for the next chapter. And once you begin to live this way, something incredible happens. You stop fearing failure. You stop hesitating at the thought of risk. Because you know, no matter what happens, you will rise. That freedom is unstoppable. A person who is not afraid to fall cannot be held back. They move forward with boldness, with courage, with relentless energy, because their power does not depend on avoiding defeat. It depends on their ability to overcome it. This is the bounce back factor. It is the difference between those who linger in defeat and those who write new victories. It is the reason why some collapse under pressure while others thrive because of it. Resilience is the relentless spirit in action. It is the drive that refuses to die, no matter the hit. So embrace your setbacks. Wear your scars with pride. Let your failures teach you, strengthen you, and sharpen you. Because the truth is, resilience is not only about survival, it is about mastery. Once you learn how to bounce back, you learn how to rise higher than before. That is where your power truly lies. Now that you understand the bounce back factor, it is time to look at where resilience begins, in the space no one else can hear or see. It begins with the words echoing inside your mind, the private conversations that shape your strength or your weakness. That's where we turn next. The voices inside your head are not silent companions. They are architects, chiseling away at the foundation of who you are becoming. After all, resilience begins not in the external world, but in the silent battlefield within your mind. It is in those moments when no one is watching, when the room is quiet, when the only voice you hear is your own, that your future is being shaped. The words you speak to yourself can be weapons that wound you or tools that build you. You know the voice I mean, the one that whispers doubt after failure, the one that tells you to stay down, to give up, to stop trying because it's too late, too hard, too painful. That voice is cunning, persistent, relentless in its attempt to keep you small. But there is another voice, quieter at first, but just as present, the one that reminds you of your strength, that encourages one more step, one more effort, one more push. Mastering your inner dialogue is not about silencing the first voice completely, it is about choosing which voice to amplify, which to feed, which to follow. Imagine your mind as a grand arena. On one side, a shadowy figure emerges, cloaked in fear, armed with memories of every mistake you've made. It shouts insults, waves the flag of past failures, and tries to convince you that you will never rise. On the other side, another figure stands. This one carries no weapon, no armor, but radiates a steady fire, a fire of possibility, of vision, of the relentless drive that refuses to die. The battle is not fought once, it is fought every day. Which side wins depends on where you direct your attention, which voice you choose to rehearse, and which identity you claim as your own. Resilience is sustained in this mental arena. Every bounce back, every recovery, every push forward begins with a thought. Thoughts become stories, stories become beliefs, beliefs become actions, and actions shape destiny. If you want to own your destiny, you must learn to command your thoughts. You must learn to master the dialogue that shapes your inner world. So how do you do that? The first step is awareness. Too often, people allow negative voices to chatter endlessly without question. They absorb the insults of their own mind as though they were facts carved into stone. But those words are not truth, they are stories. Stories can be challenged. Stories can be rewritten. You must begin to notice when the shadow speaks, to pause long enough to ask, is this voice leading me to strength or to surrender? That simple act of awareness is like turning on a light in a dark room. Suddenly, you can see the intruder. Suddenly, you are not trapped. You are confronted with choice. Choice is the second step. Once you've recognized the voice of doubt, you must decide which words to accept and which to reject. Not every thought deserves your attention. Not every inner whisper deserves to be given power. The human mind generates thousands of thoughts every day. Some are sparks of genius, some are echoes of fear, some are nothing more than random noise. Your power lies in discernment. To master your dialogue, you must become the gatekeeper, allowing only the thoughts that align with your relentless drive to pass through. But awareness and choice are not enough without replacement. You cannot simply silence the shadow. Nature abhors a vacuum. If you strip away one story, you must replace it with another. This is where affirmations, declarations, and intentional language step in. Not the shallow, empty words repeated without belief, but deep-rooted affirmations spoken with conviction. Words like, "I rise every time I fall," "I am built for the storm," "I refuse to surrender." Spoken daily, these words do more than echo in your mind. They carve grooves, like rivers shaping valleys, altering the landscape of your inner world. Over time, they become your natural voice, louder than the whispers of doubt. There's another layer to this mastery: visualization. When you picture yourself rising after failure, when you see yourself succeeding where once you fell, you are rehearsing victory. The mind doesn't easily distinguish between imagined experience and lived experience. By painting clear, bold pictures of who you are becoming, you train your inner dialogue to follow suit. Suddenly, your mind isn't saying, "I can't." It begins saying, "I've already done it." That shift is powerful beyond measure. But even as you build this stronger voice, the shadow will return. It will come in moments of fatigue, in seasons of loss, in unexpected corners of life. The difference is that now, you will not fear it. You will not mistake it for truth. You will recognize it as a challenger, and you will be ready. Because mastery is not the absence of battle, it is the ability to win it again and again. Each victory, no matter how small, builds momentum. Each time you choose the voice of strength, you reinforce your identity as someone who cannot be broken. Think of Muhammad Ali standing in the ring, declaring, "I am the greatest," long before the world agreed. That was not arrogance. It was mastery of inner dialogue. It was choosing to feed the voice of triumph so relentlessly that eventually, the external reality had no choice but to align. Your words to yourself carry that same power. They may not make headlines, but they will make futures. Still, mastering the inner dialogue is not a one-time decision. It is a discipline. Like a garden, it requires daily tending. Left unchecked, weeds of doubt will grow back. Left unattended, the shadow will gain ground. But with consistent practice, affirmations, visualizations, conscious choice, you create a thriving field where resilience and drive flourish. You create a mental environment where failure cannot define you, where fear cannot control you, where weakness cannot dominate you. The most resilient people you've ever admired have fought battles in silence that no one will ever know. They have wrestled with voices that told them to quit, that mocked their ambition, that reminded them of their scars. What makes them extraordinary is not the absence of those voices, but their refusal to surrender to them. They mastered the inner dialogue. They chose the fire over the shadow. They chose to believe in a future they had not yet seen. You can do the same. Every day you wake up, you step into that arena. Every challenge you face is preceded by a conversation in your mind. Every decision is preceded by a whisper, a suggestion, a story. Master that, and you master yourself. Master yourself, and nothing external can hold you. This is where resilience lives. This is where the bounce-back factor gains its energy. Not in the external applause, not in the recognition of others, but in the private arena where your words become weapons of strength. The relentless drive within is not fueled by external noise, it is fueled by the steady, unwavering voice you cultivate inside. Now that you have seen the battlefield of the mind, it is time to examine another battlefield, one that shapes the rhythms of your days, the patterns of your focus, and the momentum of your journey. It is the realm of habits, those small daily choices that either reinforce your inner dialogue or tear it apart. That is where we go next. Now that you've seen the battlefield of the mind, you know the voice inside is either lifting you up or breaking you down. But thoughts alone are not enough. Words and beliefs need a container to live in, a structure to carry their strength. That structure is built brick by brick, action by action, through the patterns you repeat every single day. This is the section on habits, the invisible scaffolding of your destiny. Think of your life as a towering fortress. Each stone represents a choice you make. Some stones are solid, cut with precision, placed firmly to strengthen the walls. Others are cracked, fragile, unstable, weakening the structure without you realizing it. Over time, these choices accumulate. Habits are not neutral, they are builders or destroyers. The question is not whether you have habits, but whether your habits are building your fortress or eroding it from within. Habits carry a quiet power. Unlike bursts of motivation, they don't shout, they whisper. They are subtle, often invisible, yet they steer the direction of your life with relentless consistency. What you choose to do once matters less than what you repeat. A single choice may spark change, but repeated choices forge identity. If your inner dialogue is the architect of your life, habits are the craftsmen who bring the blueprint to reality. It begins in small things: the time you wake up, the way you start your morning, the food you choose to eat, the decision to reach for your phone or reach for your journal. Each action seems insignificant in isolation, but repeated over time, it builds momentum. Habits stack. They compound like interest, growing larger and more powerful, either serving you or sabotaging you. That's why successful people don't rely on fleeting motivation. They rely on habits that sustain their drive when willpower wanes. Imagine a river carving through rock. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not a single rush of water that shapes the canyon. It's steady, persistent flow. Habits are that flow. Over time, they cut through resistance, shaping not only your days, but your character. The person who consistently disciplines their mornings doesn't just have a routine, they become disciplined. The one who chooses exercise daily isn't just fit, they embody strength. Who you are becoming is a direct result of the habits you are rehearsing. But here lies the challenge. Habits are stubborn. Once carved, they are grooves in the mind, automatic tracks your life follows with little thought. If you have built destructive habits, you know how strong their grip can feel. Yet the same stubbornness that keeps a bad habit alive is the same power that can sustain a great one once it is forged. The key is not to destroy every old groove at once. It is to redirect the flow, to carve new channels, to replace weakness with strength. So how do you start? The first step is awareness. Just as you learn to notice the voices of your inner dialogue, you must now notice the rituals of your daily life. Walk through your day with a sharp eye. What are the actions you repeat without thinking? Which ones align with your vision and which ones betray it? Often, the habits that hold you back are so ingrained you hardly recognize them as choices at all. The late-night scrolling, the skipped workout, the half-finished project. Each of these is a habit in disguise. Bringing them into the light is the first step toward reclaiming control. The second step is alignment. Not all good habits are good for you, and not all bad habits are obviously destructive. A habit's value is measured against your vision. Ask yourself, does this action bring me closer to the person I am becoming, or does it keep me chained to who I used to be? A habit of reading may serve one person and burden another if it distracts from their mission. A habit of saying yes to every request may look noble but secretly drain the focus required for your true purpose. Alignment means cutting away habits that don't fit, no matter how harmless they may appear. The third step is design. Habits are not sustained by willpower alone. They are sustained by environment. If your environment is cluttered with triggers of weakness, your habits will mirror that chaos. But if your environment is designed with intention, habits become effortless. Place the book on your pillow to remind you to read before sleep. Prepare your workout clothes the night before to reduce friction in the morning. Remove the distractions from your workspace so focus becomes natural. You are not just building habits, You are building systems that make the right choice the easy choice. But design goes deeper than environment. It also means ritualizing habits so they become identity-driven. A person who says, "I will try to run every morning," is making a fragile promise. A person who says, "I am a runner," is declaring identity. Habits rooted in identity are nearly unbreakable. When you embody the habit, it is no longer something you do, it is who you are. You don't fight to maintain it, because abandoning it would mean betraying yourself. That is the power of identity-driven habits. There will be resistance. New habits rarely take root without struggle. At first, the old grooves will pull you back, whispering that it's easier to stay the same. But remember the river carving through rock. It resists at first, but persistence wins. Your habits don't have to be perfect, they have to be consistent. Missed once is a stumble. Missed twice becomes the beginning of a new, weaker groove. Guard against the second miss. Protect the consistency fiercely, because momentum is fragile at the start. Every habit you build is a seed. Some sprout quickly, giving you immediate energy. Others take months or years before you see their fruit. But time will pass regardless. The only question is whether that time is being used to plant strength or plant weakness. A year from now, you will look back and see the harvest of today's habits. Will it be a harvest of regret or of relentless growth? That choice is yours in this very moment. The greatest among us understand this. Look at athletes, entrepreneurs, creators, leaders. They do not rise because of a single monumental action. They rise because of thousands of tiny, disciplined repetitions. They build habits that carry them when passion fades, that sustain them when storms hit, that protect them when the world doubts them. Habits are the silent engine of greatness, the relentless drive within expressed in daily practice. Now consider your own fortress. Picture the walls. Which stones are strong, which are cracked, which need replacing, which bricks must be laid anew. Do not underestimate the smallest brick. Great walls are built one stone at a time. Great lives are built one habit at a time. You already have the architect within you. Now you must command the craftsman of your daily choices. Once you understand the power of habits, you begin to realize how little is left to chance. Your success is not an accident waiting to happen. It is a system waiting to be built. The more intentional you become with your habits, the more predictable your future becomes. That is not just empowering, it is liberating, because it means your destiny is not outside your control. It is in your hands, repeated in your actions, reinforced in your rituals. As you master the rhythm of your days, you will find that focus sharpens, distractions fall away, and progress accelerates. But this raises another question. Focus on what? Habits are powerful, but they are only as strong as the direction they serve. Without clarity of priorities, habits can become empty rituals, actions without meaning. That is why the next step in this journey is understanding the principle of focus, of channeling your relentless drive into the right targets. Once you master habits, your life gains structure, a rhythm that propels you forward even when motivation falters. But structure alone is not enough. Energy without direction is wasted, like a river spilling into sand instead of flowing to the sea. That is where focus comes in, the lens that concentrates your relentless drive, the force that turns scattered effort into unstoppable momentum. Focus is the principle that transforms repetition into results, that makes every habit and every action a weapon pointed at your vision. Focus begins with choice. In a world of endless options, distractions lurk around every corner, waiting to steal your attention. Notifications, emails, fleeting impulses, social obligations. Each one is a silent thief, robbing your energy and diluting your power. To focus is to choose deliberately where your energy goes. It is to recognize that every yes to something outside your mission is a no to the life you are building. Focus demands ruthlessness. It demands the courage to guard your attention as fiercely as you guard your life. Imagine the sun through a magnifying glass. Light dispersed over a wide area feels warm but harmless. Concentrated through a lens, that same light can ignite fire. Focus works the same way. Your energy, habits, and discipline, when scattered, produce incremental change at best. When focused, they produce breakthroughs, igniting results that can feel almost instantaneous compared to the effort invested. Focus is the magnifying glass of your relentless drive, turning consistent effort into extraordinary outcomes. The first step in focus is clarity. You cannot aim at a target you cannot see. Take your vision, the one you crafted with relentless precision, and break it down into the areas that matter most right now. What are the critical few tasks that will move you closer to that vision? What actions have the highest return for your energy and effort? Focus is not doing more, it is doing less, but with more intensity, more precision, and more intent. Eliminating distractions is the second step. Distractions are not neutral. They steal your momentum, fracture your attention, and dilute the value of your efforts. When you allow distractions to dominate, even strong habits lose their impact. This means creating boundaries, turning off notifications, limiting time spent in unproductive environments, saying no to requests that don't serve your mission. Focus requires the discipline to cut away the noise without hesitation, to protect the sacred space where your energy meets your purpose. But focus is not only external, it is internal. The mind is a battlefield, and scattered thoughts are as destructive as external interruptions. Multitasking, mental clutter, indecision, all of these fracture your power. To focus, you must train your mind to return again and again to what matters most. Meditation, journaling, or simply pausing to realign with your priorities can transform wandering attention into precise force. The person who masters internal focus is unshakable, able to maintain momentum even when life pulls in 1,000 directions. Focus also requires patience. Results rarely appear overnight, even when effort is concentrated. This is where so many stumble. They lose focus because progress feels invisible. But true focus is not about instant gratification. It is about persistence in the face of delayed rewards. The river that carves a canyon does not rush. It flows day after day, invisible to most, until the landscape itself is changed forever. That is the principle of focus. It is sustained energy, applied relentlessly to the right targets over time. Prioritization is another key aspect. Focus is not about doing everything on your list. It is about doing the right things. Every action must be weighed against its contribution to your vision. Ask yourself, if I could only do one thing today, what would have the greatest impact? The answer to that question is where your focus belongs. Learn to act decisively on the most important, most meaningful tasks first, and the secondary tasks will either fall into place or fade away as irrelevant. Focus magnifies the power of your habits, the clarity of your inner dialogue, and the discipline you have built. When these elements converge on a single priority, momentum compounds. Think of a laser beam again. A single focused ray can cut through steel, whereas scattered light can barely warm a surface. Your actions, directed with relentless focus, create an intensity that cannot be stopped. Every hour, every habit, every ounce of energy becomes part of a concentrated force that propels you forward with unstoppable velocity. But focus also requires flexibility within its framework. Life will present unexpected obstacles, opportunities, and shifts. To maintain focus is not to ignore these changes, but to evaluate them quickly, decide whether they align with your mission, and act accordingly. Focus is not rigidity, it is selective adaptability. It is a sharp arrow that can adjust its trajectory mid-flight while still reaching the intended target. The person who masters focus moves through life with both precision and resilience. Focus is amplified by momentum. The longer you maintain it, the easier it becomes to sustain. Early wins, small victories, and completed tasks build a rhythm that supports deeper concentration. Conversely, fragmented attention erodes momentum, creating a cycle of frustration and fatigue. That is why protecting focus is not optional. It is the foundation upon which your relentless drive is executed. Every small moment of attention squandered is energy lost. Every distraction indulged is time stolen from your future self. There is also a psychological aspect to focus that must not be ignored. When your attention is scattered, stress, doubt, and anxiety multiply. You feel busy but unproductive, overwhelmed but powerless. Focus simplifies, clarifies, and strengthens. When your attention is concentrated on the vital few, the noise falls away. You feel control, confidence, and a sense of forward motion. This mental clarity is not incidental. It is a consequence of intentional focus, cultivated daily, protected fiercely, and applied relentlessly. Focus is a muscle that can be trained. Start small, pick one task, one goal, one area of your life, and commit full attention to it until it is complete. Resist the urge to jump to the next shiny distraction. Each success builds the capacity to concentrate longer, act more decisively, and achieve with greater efficiency. Over time, the habit of focus becomes automatic. You no longer struggle to prioritize or maintain attention. The skill becomes part of your identity, another layer of the relentless drive within. When focus becomes second nature, it changes everything. Decisions are quicker because your priorities are clear. Energy is multiplied because it is concentrated. Habits compound more efficiently because they are aligned. Vision becomes reality because the force of your action is no longer scattered but directed like a sharpened blade. Focus is the lens through which all the elements of relentless growth, discipline, resilience, inner dialogue, habits come together and intensify. Your challenge now is to step into this principle fully. Protect your attention as fiercely as you protect your life. Concentrate your energy on what truly matters. Reject the distractions that dilute your power. Train your mind to return again and again to the essential. Let focus magnify your efforts, align your habits, and sharpen your relentless drive until you become unstoppable. The power of focus sets the stage for the next critical principle, owning your choices fully, without blame or excuse, and creating a life that reflects the relentless drive within. That is where we go next. The power of focus sets the stage, but even the sharpest focus and the most relentless drive can be wasted if you refuse to take full responsibility for your life. This section is about radical ownership, the uncompromising acknowledgement that no one else controls your results, your choices, or the trajectory of your life. It is the moment you stop pointing fingers, stop blaming circumstances, and stop waiting for permission. Radical ownership is the foundation upon which all true growth and achievement are built. Take a look around. How often do people complain about what's outside of their control? They blame bosses, governments, partners, markets, luck, or even fate. Excuses are comforting because they shift responsibility, but they are illusions. They feel like shields, but in reality, they are chains. Radical ownership shatters those illusions. It strips away excuses and reveals one undeniable truth. Your life is yours to command. Everything you want to achieve, every obstacle you face, is your responsibility to navigate, to solve, to master. Ownership is not passive acceptance. It is aggressive action. It is saying, I am the architect of my reality. If something is broken, I fix it. If results are missing, I create them. If I fall short, I rise and try again. That mindset is a game changer because it removes the victim mentality from your life. When you take ownership, setbacks stop being excuses and become fuel. Every challenge, every failure, every frustration becomes raw material for building a stronger, smarter, more capable you. Imagine a ship at sea. A storm hits, the waves rise, the winds howl. A crew that refuses ownership will blame the captain, the weather, or the map. They are adrift, at the mercy of forces beyond their control. A crew that embraces radical ownership does not wait for the storm to end. They adjust the sails, steady the rudder, and navigate with precision. Ownership transforms chaos into opportunity. It turns helplessness into mastery. It allows you to move, even when the world seems determined to push you back. Ownership begins with self-awareness. You cannot take responsibility for what you do not see. Examine your life honestly. Where are you coasting? Where are you avoiding accountability? Where are you letting circumstances dictate your actions? Radical ownership requires brutal honesty, because the moment you rationalize your failures as someone else's fault, you forfeit your power. Awareness is the first step because it illuminates the areas where your energy and effort must be concentrated. Next comes acknowledgement. You must confront your role in every outcome, good or bad. Celebrate your victories, but also recognize your mistakes without shifting blame. When something goes wrong, ask yourself, what could I have done differently? What is my part in this? How can I respond more effectively next time? Radical ownership does not mean self-punishment, it means self-empowerment. By embracing responsibility, you stop being a passenger in your life and become the driver. Ownership also demands action. Awareness and acknowledgement without action are empty gestures. Once you recognize where you are accountable, you must act decisively. Take the steps necessary to correct, adjust, and improve. Stop waiting for circumstances to align perfectly. Stop hoping for luck to intervene. Your results will always follow your actions, not your intentions. Radical ownership is the bridge between knowledge and achievement, between understanding and results. One of the most challenging aspects of ownership is embracing discomfort. Taking full responsibility often requires facing truths that are uncomfortable, inconvenient, or humbling. You must confront habits that sabotage you, decisions that failed, and moments when you avoided responsibility. But it is precisely in this discomfort that growth occurs. The more willing you are to confront the hard truths, the stronger, wiser, and more resilient you become. Ownership transforms pain into power because it forces you to learn, adapt, and act. Radical ownership is also about eliminating excuses before they appear. Don't wait until failure arrives to take responsibility. Claim it now, for the future. Anticipate challenges, predict obstacles, and plan your response. Prepare your mind, habits, and focus to confront adversity with courage and clarity. Ownership is proactive, not reactive. It is about shaping your life deliberately, rather than being shaped by events, circumstances, or other people. Consider the most successful people you know. The ones who rise above mediocrity, who accomplish extraordinary things, who remain steadfast despite setbacks. They do not rely on luck, talent, or external validation. They rely on ownership. They understand that everything they see in their life, every result, every relationship, every circumstance, is a reflection of choices they can control, improve, and leverage. That understanding turns chaos into strategy and adversity into advantage. Ownership extends beyond mere results. It permeates your mindset, your energy, and your presence. When you refuse to blame, you stop wasting time and energy on anger, frustration, or regret. You channel that energy into problem solving, creation, and forward motion. The person who takes radical ownership carries a quiet confidence because they know they are accountable for the forces that shape their life. They do not hope for control, they act for it. There is also a liberating aspect to ownership. Many see responsibility as a burden, but the opposite is true. Ownership is freedom. When you stop depending on others to make your life work, when you stop waiting for circumstances to change, you reclaim your power. You can respond to any challenge, recover from any setback, and pursue any goal because your results are in your hands. Radical ownership is not constraint, it is liberation. It is the key to becoming truly unstoppable. However, ownership is a daily practice. It is easy to feel responsible when things are going well, when energy is high and results are visible. The true test is ownership in difficulty, when projects fail, when plans unravel, when expectations are unmet. Taking responsibility in those moments separates the ordinary from the extraordinary. Every time you refuse blame and choose action, you reinforce the identity of someone who controls their life, regardless of external circumstances. Ownership is intimately connected with all the principles you've cultivated so far: discipline, resilience, inner dialogue, habits, and focus. Discipline allows you to act consistently. Resilience allows you to rise after failure. Inner dialogue shapes your belief in your capacity to take responsibility. Habits create systems that support accountability. Focus ensures your energy is directed toward what matters most. Without ownership, all these principles may create temporary gains, but they will never translate into full mastery of your life. Think of ownership as the rudder of a ship. No matter how strong the wind of circumstances or the waves of life, the rudder directs the vessel. Without it, momentum is useless, speed is wasted, and progress is random. With it, every effort is purposeful, every action contributes to forward motion, and every obstacle becomes navigable. Radical ownership puts you in control of the rudder. It makes you the captain of your ship, the driver of your destiny, the relentless force behind your vision. Now that you have seen the power of radical ownership, it is time to look beyond control and action to energy itself. Ownership commands your choices, but energy sustains your capacity to act. How you manage your physical, mental, and emotional energy determines the intensity, persistence, and quality of every action you take. That is where the next principle takes us. Ownership gives you control, discipline gives you structure, focus gives you direction. But none of these principles matter if you lack the energy to act. This section is about energy management, the hidden engine behind every relentless drive. Energy is the currency of performance, the fuel that powers action, the force that transforms intention into results. Without it, vision fades, habits falter, and even ownership becomes a hollow idea. Energy exists in three dimensions: physical, mental, and emotional. Each interacts with the others, creating the foundation for your capacity to act. Physical energy is the most obvious. It comes from sleep, nutrition, movement, and recovery. Without it, your body cannot sustain the grind, your mind cannot focus, and your emotions cannot remain balanced. Yet so many of us treat energy as infinite, burning it recklessly, then wondering why we collapse under pressure or fail to execute our plans. Imagine a car with a full tank of gas but a dead battery. No matter how much fuel it has, it cannot start. That is what happens when your physical energy is neglected. Sleep is non-negotiable. It is not a luxury. It is a replenishment system. Skimping on rest reduces reaction time, dulls focus, and lowers resilience. Nutrition is fuel. What you consume becomes the building blocks of your capacity to act. A balanced diet, rich in nutrients, supports sustained energy instead of the spikes and crashes of empty calories. Movement is ignition. Exercise stimulates circulation, oxygenates the brain, and strengthens your body to endure stress. Recovery is the rhythm. Without it, even the strongest habits collapse under exhaustion. Mental energy is no less vital. It is the capacity to concentrate, analyze, and make decisions. A cluttered mind, distracted and unfocused, burns energy on trivialities instead of directing it toward what matters. Mental energy is cultivated through clarity, prioritization, and focus. Meditation, journaling, and periods of solitude create space for mental restoration. Limiting mental noise, turning off constant notifications, reducing overexposure to irrelevant information, prevents depletion. Your ability to make decisive, high-quality choices is directly proportional to the mental energy you preserve and harness. Emotional energy is often overlooked, yet it is just as critical. Negative emotions, resentment, fear, self-doubt, are leeches, draining strength from your physical and mental reserves. Positive emotions, gratitude, confidence, determination, act as accelerants, multiplying the impact of your effort. Managing your emotional energy means being aware of what you allow into your inner world. It means setting boundaries around toxic influences, choosing who and what you give your attention to, and cultivating emotional habits that sustain rather than deplete. A resilient, focused, and disciplined person without emotional energy is like a sword without a whetstone. It cannot cut deeply or effectively. Energy management is not passive, it requires deliberate design. Just as you design habits and protect focus, you must design your environment, routines, and interactions to maximize energy. Start by mapping your daily rhythm. When are your peak hours for mental clarity? When does your body feel strongest? Align your highest priority actions with these windows. Schedule breaks intentionally to prevent burnout. Surround yourself with people and stimuli that elevate your energy rather than drain it. Think of yourself as a furnace. The more efficiently you feed it, the hotter and longer it burns. Small, consistent practices compound into massive energy gains. A 10-minute walk in the morning may seem trivial, but it sparks circulation, clears the mind, and sets the tone for a productive day. A brief meditation or breathing exercise can recalibrate mental focus, quieting the chatter of doubt or distraction. A simple habit of noting gratitude or reframing challenges can fortify emotional reserves, allowing you to approach adversity with steadiness and clarity. Energy is cumulative. Small deposits made consistently lead to sustained reserves for the battles ahead. Energy also thrives on balance. Pushing relentlessly without replenishment is not relentless drive, it is exhaustion disguised as effort. True relentless drive requires cycles, periods of intense action followed by deliberate recovery. This applies to physical exertion, mental focus, and emotional investment. The person who ignores these cycles eventually hits a wall. The person who respects them maintains momentum indefinitely, turning bursts of effort into sustained performance. Think of elite athletes. They do not train endlessly without rest. Their strength comes from carefully calibrated periods of exertion, nutrition, sleep, and recovery. Their mental and emotional preparation is as rigorous as their physical training. The same principle applies to anyone striving for mastery. You are your own athlete, your own engineer, your own commander. Your energy is the fuel, and your management of it determines how far, how fast, and how consistently you can go. There is also a strategic element to energy. Not all tasks are created equal, and not all moments of effort yield the same results. High-value, high-focus tasks demand peak energy. Low-value, routine tasks should be scheduled when energy naturally dips. Recognize your energy peaks and valleys, and align your priorities accordingly. Energy mismanagement often masquerades as laziness or lack of discipline, but in reality, it is a failure to align action with capacity. Optimize energy, and productivity and effectiveness multiply. Energy is intimately linked with all the principles you've built so far. Habits ensure consistent energy replenishment through routine actions. Focus prevents energy leakage by eliminating distraction. Ownership compels you to take responsibility for your energy, not allowing external circumstances to dictate how you feel or perform. Resilience allows you to recover energy quickly after setbacks, preventing a temporary hit from turning into long-term depletion. Inner dialogue sustains emotional energy by shaping self-talk and reinforcing confidence and determination. Together, these principles create a system where energy is both protected and amplified, fueling relentless drive. Now consider the cumulative effect. When physical, mental, and emotional energy are managed intentionally, your ability to act, persist, and excel multiplies. You can execute demanding tasks with clarity, recover from failure with speed, maintain focus without fatigue, and persist through the grind without collapsing. Energy management does not guarantee ease, it guarantees capacity. It guarantees the raw power needed to wield your relentless drive at full force every day under any conditions. Mastering your energy is also about foresight. Anticipate challenges, knowing they will require bursts of high energy. Protect reserves for critical moments. Avoid wasteful battles. Save your strength for actions that move the needle, for tasks that align with your vision, for decisions that shape your destiny. Energy is finite in the moment, but renewable over time with proper management. Treat it as the most valuable resource in your life because it is the currency of execution. When energy is managed effectively, you become unstoppable. Discipline, focus, habits, ownership, and resilience all converge and intensify. Your actions are precise, consistent, and powerful. You can face challenges without hesitation, pursue goals without burnout, and maintain momentum where others falter. Energy is the unseen engine that amplifies everything you've built so far, transforming potential into results, intention into action, and vision into reality. Now that energy is under your command, you have all the components of relentless drive: mindset, habits, focus, ownership, resilience, and the fuel to sustain it. The final principle is synthesis, the ability to combine all these elements into a life of purpose, impact, and unstoppable forward motion. That is where we turn next. You've walked the path from the spark of relentless drive to the mastery of energy, focus, habits, resilience, ownership, and inner dialogue. Each principle is a tool, a piece of the puzzle, a rung on the ladder. But now comes the moment where they converge, where the separate strands of discipline, clarity, and power intertwine into something unstoppable. This section is synthesis, the art and science of becoming a force that refuses to be slowed, deterred, or diminished. Imagine a symphony orchestra. Every instrument on its own can produce sound, some beautiful, some discordant. But when the musicians play in harmony, guided by a conductor's vision, the music becomes transcendent, moving, unstoppable in its ability to stir the soul. Your principles are the instruments. Discipline is the strings, tensioned to precision. Habits are the percussion, keeping rhythm and momentum. Focus is the conductor's baton, directing energy with precision. Resilience is the brass, bold and enduring, cutting through obstacles. Inner dialogue is the harmony that binds everything, and ownership is the stage on which the entire performance unfolds. Alone, each has impact. Together, they create unstoppable force. Synthesis begins with integration. It is not enough to practice each principle in isolation. You must see how they interact, how they reinforce each other, how mastery of one amplifies the others. Discipline without focus can become rigidity. Focus without energy can burn out. Habits without ownership are empty rituals. Resilience without inner dialogue can feel like brute force without guidance. The power lies in weaving them together, creating a coherent system where every principle strengthens the others. Take a moment to visualize your life as a high-performance machine. Each principle is a critical component. Habits are the gears, turning steadily, driving movement. Energy is the fuel, keeping the machine alive and capable of peak output. Focus is the steering mechanism, ensuring that all motion is directed toward the right target. Ownership is the engine operator, commanding the controls, making decisions, taking responsibility for every turn and adjustment. Resilience is the suspension system, absorbing shocks, enabling recovery after each hit. Inner dialogue is the cooling system, regulating temperature, maintaining balance, keeping the machine from overheating. When these systems work together seamlessly, the machine moves not just efficiently, but relentlessly, with unstoppable precision. Integration also requires timing. Just as an orchestra must know when to crescendo, when to soften, when to pause, you must understand the rhythm of your own energy, focus, and drive. There is a tempo to sustained growth. Push too hard without recovery and the system falters. Hesitate too long and momentum is lost. Mastery is knowing when to accelerate, when to pause, when to apply brute force, and when to rely on subtle, consistent effort. Timing is the silent force that allows relentless drive to translate into meaningful results. Visualization is the final bridge to synthesis. Picture the life you want, the person you aspire to be, the impact you want to create, the challenges you want to overcome. Now, overlay every principle onto that vision. See your habits shaping your day. See your focus cutting through distraction. Feel your energy fueling consistent action. Hear your inner dialogue reinforcing belief. Sense your resilience rising after every setback. Experience the empowerment of ownership steering every decision. In this mental rehearsal, your principles converge into a living, breathing version of your unstoppable self. The more vividly you imagine it, the more tangibly it begins to manifest in reality. Synthesis also demands courage. Even when principles are mastered individually, combining them requires stepping fully into responsibility, embracing discomfort, and committing to relentless application. There will be resistance from the world, from others, from old patterns within yourself. There will be moments of doubt. The gap between potential and reality is often narrow, yet terrifying. But when synthesis is achieved, fear loses its grip. You are not just prepared, you are empowered. You act not out of hope, but certainty, because your system is designed to propel you forward. The unstoppable person does not wait for the perfect conditions to begin. They do not rely on external validation. They do not react passively to life. They move decisively, persistently, deliberately, and intelligently. They understand that the trajectory of their life is a product of aligned action, and that every moment can be leveraged to compound growth. Unstoppable people are relentless because they are systems-driven, not circumstance-driven. They act with inevitability because their internal systems support action in every condition, against every obstacle, and beyond every fear. Integration also requires adaptability. The principles are not static. They must respond to circumstance without losing alignment. When new challenges arise, the machine must adjust. When new opportunities appear, focus must shift. When energy dips, replenishment is required. Synthesis is dynamic, alive, responsive. It is not a rigid formula. It is a flexible, living system of principles that supports continuous movement, growth, and achievement. Now imagine the ripple effect. One person mastering synthesis does more than achieve their own goals. They inspire others. Focus becomes contagious. Energy amplifies within teams. Ownership models responsibility. Habits set standards. Resilience teaches endurance. Inner dialogue shapes culture. Mastery of self creates mastery of influence. The unstoppable life does not exist in isolation. It spreads outward, affecting environments, communities, and opportunities in ways that seem effortless, yet are the direct result of aligned principles acting as one. The final element of synthesis is legacy. Unstoppable people are aware that their drive is not merely personal. It is purposeful. They pursue not only personal success, but impact. The convergence of discipline, habits, focus, resilience, ownership, inner dialogue, and energy equips them to leave marks beyond themselves. Each principle, fully integrated, amplifies their capacity to act, to influence, to create. To synthesize is to not only become unstoppable in life's pursuit, but to shape a force that moves the world around you. To live in synthesis is to operate with intentionality in every moment. Decisions are not reactive, they are aligned. Actions are not random, they are directed. Energy is not wasted, it is harnessed and replenished. Momentum is constant because the system you have built does not falter easily. You are resilient because setbacks are absorbed, analyzed, and converted into growth. You are disciplined because habits are ingrained, reinforced by focus and energy. You are unshakable because ownership keeps control firmly in your hands, and your inner dialogue ensures that belief fuels every action. This is not a distant ideal, it is achievable now. Each chapter, each principle you've absorbed has prepared you for this moment. The difference between potential and reality is not luck, timing, or talent, it is synthesis. The relentless drive within becomes unstoppable only when you integrate knowledge, practice, and action into a coherent, living system. That is the culmination of this journey. That is how ordinary individuals rise to extraordinary heights. When you combine every element, the habits that structure your days, the focus that sharpens your efforts, the resilience that rises after every setback, the ownership that places control firmly in your hands, the inner dialogue that guides and motivates, and the energy that fuels it all, you do not just succeed. You dominate the challenges that once seemed insurmountable. You become unstoppable, not by chance, but by design. This is the crescendo, the ultimate stage where your relentless drive is fully expressed. You are no longer a collection of principles. You are a living system of power, precision, and momentum. You move through life with intention, strength, and inevitability. Challenges bend, obstacles shift, setbacks transform into springboards. Every action, every thought, every choice is amplified. You are relentless, you are aligned, you are unstoppable. The life you imagined, the life you deserve, the life built on relentless drive, focus, resilience, ownership, energy, habits, and inner dialogue is not out of reach. It is here, within you, waiting to be claimed. Synthesis is the bridge from knowing to being, from potential to mastery, from dream to reality. When you step fully into it, nothing can stop the force you become.